Everyone, it's 5:30 p.m. Monday, February 24th, and I'm calling the meeting to order. My name is Jasmine Mustafa. This is the meeting of the Port of Olympia, and I will ask Commissioner Montano to guide us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is approval of the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Moving on, Executive Director report. Thank you.
You, President Fasad.
Right.
So coming up this week, we have a lot of different activities. On Wednesday evening, there'll be a Q&A right here in this room. The Olympia Regional Airport Manager, Chris Paolini, as well as other relevant port staff. It's from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. And we invite whoever in the community would like to get more information on the airport draft master plan update to come. It's an opportunity to gain an understanding of the updates being proposed, as well as what's in the plan and what's not in the plan. So if you want more information, please visit our website. And again, it's this Wednesday, February 26th at 5:30 p.m. in this room. No. Yep. There we go. Okay, next up on Thursday, February 27th, there's a town hall with Commissioner Ayal. He's having a town hall in his district. It's at Nisqually Middle School, 100 Silicon Road Southeast in Lacey. It's in person, open to the public, and it's just an opportunity for constituents in District 2 to come and talk with Commissioner Ayal and learn more about the port and his goals and his vision for the port's future. Last week, some Port staff had the opportunity to attend the Distinguished Leader Awards. The Thurston County Chamber creates the Distinguished Leader Award, and we honored the recipients of that award. It spotlighted individuals and organizations who lead with initiative, inspire others, and create a meaningful impact in our community. The winners were the Panowitz family, Chenda and Bill Richardson, who had the Childhood and Gallery, yeah, and then Panorama as well. And we have an opportunity coming up for folks to learn more about the sampling that we are doing in West Bay of Flood Inlet. So on March 4th, we're hosting a public observation day. It starts at 10 a.m. and runs through 2 p.m. and it's at the Port Plaza Pier. And we're going to have some students from Evergreen College come. And we also want to give community members a chance to view the sediment sampling process up close and personal. Folks can actually get on the boat and talk with the scientists and learn as they go about doing their sampling projects. And we'll also have port staff on site to help answer questions. So please join us on March 4th. And then just wanted to highlight that I'm getting close to being 1 year in this position. Really spent the first year trying to listen, learn, build some internal and external relationships, identify some of our internal priorities, get to know our staff and our commissioners. But now that I have a better understanding of the internal and external landscape of the port, and now that we're almost fully staffed, I'd like to pivot to focusing us more on the work that the community said it expects of the port. For guidance on what the community wants from the port, we've taken a good hard look at the port's foundational planning documents, in particular Vision 2050, as well as the strategic plan 2025 that runs through 2025. So I'm excited to work with the commission on when and how we implement the priorities that have been identified in those documents. And we'll start our conversation on that with the commission tomorrow. And last but not least, as always, opportunities for your input. We love to engage with folks on all of these different platforms. So please do engage and let us know your feedback, and we will, excited to engage with you. So thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the public comment portion of our agenda. I think I'll note and check in with you, Director Smith, that this is the first time we are moving to the new form. So comments as usual should be directed to the commission, not single out a specific staffer or single out a specific member of the public. And we will be courteous in language and demeanor. The change is that we invite the public to give input right now during this period on anything that's on the calendar for today. If in the case of hearing the advisory calendar, you realize you had another comment that is triggered for you, please don't hesitate to email, to share your question. The reason we changed this was so that during the advisory calendar, the commission can possibly elevate those things we're trying to figure out on the same day. So with that, we'll move to public comment. And I have right here. Thank you, Vice Chair. We'll bring up Carla Wolfsberg.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Carla Wolfsberg. I live in Tumwater, and I'm here just to talk about my concerns for the public process of the airport master plan update and about the airport town hall that's scheduled for this Wednesday, which is described, as you heard, as a Q&A question and answer meeting only. Not only is this town hall really out of sequence, but it appears to be really just an opportunity for the port to tell the public that the master plan update really is done. And I think it would have been really valuable to have the town hall before the 30-day public comment period that began in January and closed on February 12th. So what it makes me think is that you've all decided right now to adopt the plan as is on March 24th. It's really quite spelled out on your website, which says, and I'm going to quote, this is in the newsroom. It's important to note that while we welcome public comment on the draft master plan documents, no changes are expected prior to March 24th commission meeting. And then it goes on to say there have been a few updates on the master plan since since late 2022, as the documents being presented to the commission on March reflect no substantive changes since the project was paused. Now, that statement about no changes are expected and no substantive changes are since 2022 really are what concern me the most. And it's really kind of demoralizing. It's kind of not insulting to us in the community that you're offering a town hall and a public hearing this month before your March 24th meeting, but that public comment really is meaningless. We're just there to listen. So, I think that even though there's also this problem about there were 4 open houses, which we heard about that were in from 2021 to 2022. Now that's 3 years ago. And the complete master plan update, I don't even believe was available on the website until December 2024. So I just really have some very strong concerns about this whole process and how it's going and sequentially. And I think the public is still in the dark about the comments that were submitted by other community members during that 30-day period. It's not available on the website. I don't even know if you've been able to read it, but it's supposed to be part of the final master plan, airport master plan update document. So I just wonder, what is the point of a town hall question and answer only meeting or the public hearing that's scheduled for March 24th when public comments will not be taken into consideration? So commissioners, I think by eliminating the public's opportunity to inform you now is potentially do a lot of harm to us and to the community. So I just hope that you can do better. And I think we as a public deserve a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsberg. We have Rhonda Larson Kramer.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Larson Kramer and I live in Olympia. And I'd like to also talk a little bit about the master plan update for the airport. When an airport accepts funding from the FAA's Airport Improvement Program, AIP, it must comply with grant assurances. Grant assurances are a set of obligations that typically last for 20 years. They could last longer if land purchased with the grant funds is involved. These assurances require the airport to continue airport-related development. Grant assurances often limit the ability of the local elected officials to later prevent expansion. I want to bring to your attention an article published a month ago about the city of Boulder suing the FAA. The city is suing to challenge the FAA's claim that the airport must stay open in perpetuity merely because of grant assurances. The city used FAA grant funding to buy some land in 1991 for the airport. The amount that they used was $5,800. The FAA claims that this $5,800 makes the city beholden to the FAA forever, and that the city has no choice but to do something that they don't want to do. Is this loss of control the future that you want for the Olympia Airport? If the future you want entails commuter service, you don't need to authorize all the expansion that this master plan proposes. The airport is already set up for commuter service. In fact, we had commuter service there many years ago, if you recall. If the future you want entails electric planes, you don't need to authorize all the expansion that this master plan proposes. Electric planes aren't coming anytime soon. When they come, you'll have the opportunity to authorize an appropriate master plan update at that time. Lastly, there is this myth floating around that the FAA is requiring you to approve this master plan update. That's putting the cart before the horse. This plan is what's needed for the port to apply for the funds, and those funds, once accepted, are what will require all the development in this plan to proceed, and that's because of grant assurances. Your vote in March to approve this plan will be a vote to force our community to bear all the costs that we have alerted you to in our SEPA comments. It is you who have the power, not the FAA, at this stage. Now I'll hand up a copy of the article about the Boulder lawsuit so you can read it if you want. And that's all I have, so thank you.
Thank you. Then we move to the people online, and I can't necessarily see who intends to give comments, so I will call some names. Amanda Summer, are you here to comment? No, you're a staffer. Deborah Patton. Harry Branch. If anyone is here to comment, will you please signify by either raising your hand or coming off mute? All right, then we'll assume that there's no one online wishing to testify. I look forward to this process being out in the future. With that, we'll move forward to the consent calendar. We only have one item, which is the minutes from the February 10th meeting.
To approve the consent calendar.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. We have no pending issues, so we're going to the action calendar, and we're going to have a briefing from James Summer, our Capital Assets Program Manager.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is James Summer. I'm your Capital Assets Program Manager, and I'm here tonight to present to you on the Information Technology Services Contract Award. So today's presentation is an action item. We are requesting action. I'm going to talk a little bit about the solicitation process, the contract details, and then a provided suggested motion. So last time I was here was on February 10th, just earlier this month. That is the bolded date on the left-hand side there. The last time I presented was the day proposals were due from the vendors. So from that date, we reviewed the proposals. On February 18th, we interviewed with the top scoring vendor, which was Fireflight Technologies, who is our current IT provider. And we have selected them to move forward in this process. And I'm here tonight, the 24th, to ask for contract approval. So some of the contract details, based on port policy, the initial term will be for 3 years with 2 options to extend for an additional 1-year period, should both parties find that mutually beneficial. The estimated annual spend is approximately $293,000 a year as it stands now. This can change. It has a lot to do with device counts, servers, whether we are cloud-based or here hosted on the site, as well as the managed service level that we request from them. So that can change. The initial not to exceed amount is $990,000. You may be asking why that does not equate to the 293 times 3. That is because we build a little bit of buffer into this contract authority should we need services that are outside of the monthly services that they provide. For example, we were to move to a new building or need a build out of a specific capital project, this allows them to then participate in that using this contract authority. So I have a suggested motion. I would also entertain any questions or comments.
Any questions?
No questions. I just have a comment if no one else has a question.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, James, my understanding is we weren't very happy with how IT was being conducted under the current contract. And I understand that our procurement, this company rose to the top and that's who we then select. But what are we doing then to make sure that our service levels are improved from what we experienced with the same company?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So I had heard that there were some concerns with the level of provided service. Some of that stemmed from this company being in Wenatchee. So it was my understanding prior to my time here that they actually had a member of their team that was here at the port 5 days a week. And they provided those services. And when that went away, there were certain elements of the port that felt they were not getting the services needed. I have since joined the IT team. So now I am a part of that team. And we did have that discussion. We had them go out to their teams, figure out, what are your concerns? And so we incorporated that actually into the interview with Firefly and sat them down and said, hey, here's some of the challenges that we have. How do you intend to fix that? And so I think it really was the interview and them getting to know us, over the last 3 years, them coming in and taking over as our IT provider. There were a lot of things that they had to address just infrastructure wise to get us up to a standard that they are comfortable with and that we should be comfortable with as a port. And so now moving into this next contract, it really gives us the chance to dig in on those processes. And as I mentioned, they are aware and they did address a lot of those concerns in the interview.
Can you share a specific problem that we've experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in general on the staff level, it was the distance, right? So being in Wenatchee, if we needed them on site, not having an IT professional on staff really meant we were waiting for them to come on site, which is typically around 2 times a month. So in order to address that, they have gone out and are soliciting for employees in this local area. They're looking to bring on contract employees who live here in Olympia so that should a need arise, they can respond immediately on site. Internally as a port, we are looking to bring on an IT professional. So some of the things, for example, that we would have them do is move workstations. It's not a highly technical item, but when you need it now, or if a workstation is down. And so having that on staff site member will help to alleviate that. And then as well, having that local presence so that if it is something that we can't handle in-house, then we do have a resource locally. And then as well, that they can escalate from their home base as well. And I think that was the majority of issue on the staff level.
Commissioner Chong, your comment?
Okay, that's very helpful questioning. To my next question, that was going to be my comment, was that we've had trouble with Firefly in the past. So I think that maybe a 1-year contract would be a better option for us at this time. And then with our new director of enterprise services and the new IT professional that you were talking about, be able to really look over the whole network and all the connected devices and everything that we have set up and see if we can have savings or not with those staff people.
And I should mention to that comment, we did mention to them that we are looking to bring that staff member on and that could potentially mean changes to their contract. Whether that means reducing their service level, or perhaps even things like software updates or licensing patching that we can do in-house. To the comment about the length of the contract, I would just remind you that we do have the ability to cancel any one of our, well, not anyone, this contract with a 60-day notice period. So should we decide 60 days from today that we are no longer happy with Firefly services, we can mutually terminate that. Well, we can terminate it from the port side for convenience, and then, proceed as we like. So just as a note, you are not locked into a 3-year contract by authorizing today. That is a 3-year contract. You're welcome.
Anything else?
I defer to my IT expert, Commissioner Montano.
I would like to build on Commissioner Montano's question. I would like to make a request that this comes back in front of us with an update or a temperature check about how things have been going. That includes asking us, perhaps in 6 months. So in August or September.
Absolutely.
So we can kind of just feel like we're understanding what's happening. Because we've had some disappointing service.
Okay, absolutely. And I can definitely fold that into the IT team and make sure that we are scheduling that and getting your feedback as well as coming back before you with the update of how things are going.
And I'll just say, in my role as resident cheerleader, I have had good customer service from Firefly. So, so my experience has been that they have been responsive, usually operator error on my part. So at least there's a mix of experiences. I would move to authorize the executive director to execute contract number 2024-1040 with Firefly Technologies for a not to exceed amount of $990,000.
You have a second?
Yeah, second.
Any further discussion?
I just like to jump on the bandwagon and say that I have not personally had any bad experiences with Firefly Technologies. In fact, I know that some of these things, some of the issues were early on in their tenure with the port, and I mean recently the experiences that I've had, they've been very responsive. The one thing I will also say is that I really appreciate the cybersecurity training that they've provided. As someone who's been through a very serious cyber attack, it's just terribly important that everybody has a good understanding of how to spot and mitigate that threat. And so I think the training that Firefly provides is really valuable and necessary.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything further? Well, then we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, commissioners.
We have nothing on the action other calendar, so we'll turn to the advisory calendar with a briefing from Mike Reed, Director of Community and Economic Development.
Warrant.
Good evening.
Warren Hendrickson, Director of Operations.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Warren Hendrickson, Director of Operations, and I will be sharing the podium during this presentation with Mike Reed, our Director of Community and Economic Development. Tonight's presentation is an advisory item. There is no action required this evening. We will provide an overview of the South Sound Commerce Center, also known as SSCC, if you see that in later slides or as we talk about the issue. This is a project that will be constructed by Panattoni Development Company, PDC, under the terms of the option to ground lease agreement and the 7th Amendment, which will be also placed before you tonight for information if approved at our next meeting. The location of this project is the New Market Industrial Campus. In the audience tonight, I'd like to introduce from the Panattoni Development Corporation Company, Len Syke, the Senior Development Manager, and Brenda Fodge, the Development Manager. So they'll be available to assist with any questions that might occur later on at the end of the presentation. Until now, I'm going to stay on this slide for just a moment. Until now, the presentations before the Commission with regard to this option lease agreement have been very technical and administrative in nature. We've been dealing with ground lease templates. We've been dealing with extension of the option lease agreement because it was based upon a calendar date of a certain HCP completion, none of which materialized. And as a result, we kept on moving down the road. And so as a result, those issues have been dealt with, but we really never were able to present to you exactly, well, what's this going to look like when it really happens? And what impact and value does it have when it shows up? Well, tonight I'm happy to say that for the first time, we're on the precipice of actually seeing a project come to fruition. And that project is the South Sound Commerce Center. And the end result is what we now know is what it looks like and what value it will bring. And those are topics that Mike will be talking about this evening. The project will be especially bringing greatly needed revenue to Olympia Regional Airport. So first we'll talk about the project, and then we'll talk about the requirements of the Seventh Amendment that may allow this to happen. So a little background. The nexus, of course, has been the Bush Prairie Habitat Conservation Plan, or HCP. The market demand has and continues to exceed the available supply for available commercial, business, and light industrial development. Panattoni has recognized that development continues to do so, but is restricted from meeting it because the current agreement, as it stands today, requires that there be no development until such time as there is an approved HCP by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Agency. I will mention that HCP does cover 4 threatened species, and the only one that does apply to the optioned property is the Mazama pocket gopher. Recognizing the handcuffs of the optional lease agreement, recognizing the demand, the limited supply, Panattoni, at its own expense, surveyed the option property to determine whether or not there was any particular property within its optioned parcel that would be gopher-free and would allow development without an HCP. In fact, they have discovered there are 2 such parcels right now that are in fact gopher-free and can allow development. In terms of the location, the star shows the location of the South Sound Commerce Center. The green line shows the expected traffic route from the intersection of I-5 and Tumwater Boulevard down Center Street and back. No further ingress is expected beyond that point. All the traffic per agreement with the city under the permitting guidelines is directed to go to and from Tumwater Boulevard from the site. The specific parcels involved are these 2. This is located just to the west of Center Street, to the north of 83rd Avenue. You can see in the lower left corner, Bush Middle School by a way of orientation. To the east of the site is International Wood Products, a port tenant on port leasehold property. And you can see the South Sound Commerce Center. This is the one that will be the topic of conversation tonight. It's 29.27 acres and a second parcel of 20.31 acres known as the Center Street Commerce Center. At this point, I'm going to hand the baton over to Mike. I will say that in his 6 weeks here, Mike has brought tremendous expertise to the port, and nobody is better equipped to go ahead and talk a little bit more about the project and what it will bring than Mike. So I'll turn it over to him, and then I'll come back and talk to you here in a little bit. Thank you. Mike.
So for the record, I'm Mike Reed. I'm your Community and Economic Development Director. One of the tasks that I heard early on as I've interfaced with the commissions is to start applying a lens that goes beyond just business development in terms of what does a project or a development mean just for the port, but looking at things through a lens of what can it do for our local or regional economy and what can it look like from a community development standpoint. So I want to go through some of those with this project in particular. So you can start seeing how I intend to maybe broaden the lens of the way that we look at projects. So this is a rendering of the proposed South Sound Commerce Center that Warren was highlighting. It is a 477,000 square foot building. These are the renderings that you can kind of see here. On the right hand of the presentation is actually, it's a snippet from some of the marketing material that Panattoni Development has put together. We'll call out, you can kind of see, it gives how long they think that it would take to deliver the product, so on. This proposal has received quite a bit of media attention already. You can see on the left hand, there's been a couple of articles written by the Olympian, first when the plans were submitted, and then also the Olympian wrote an article when Tumwater issued some decisions concerning the development proposal. I'd also say the city of Tumwater is also, they do have a webpage specifically for this project that hosts all host of information on it. And they've actually had it up for 2 years now. So this isn't something new to the community in the sphere of information. It's been out there for quite some time. I just don't know if we've had the opportunity to really bring this deeply to your attention at the degree that I think it's worth mentioning. So as I mentioned, I want to kind of start bringing these types of proposals through this sort of three layered lens here. So business development, really, when we talk about that, what is the opportunity to the port? So typically you would think that as a business line, what's the revenue generation from this proposed activity? That could be rent, option payments, and things of that nature. The second is this conversation about economic development to the city or the region. And so when we think about those concepts, it's things like, what does it do for tax revenue generation for the city that this project could be in, fees that could be paid to the city to cover certain infrastructure expenses, all the way into employment opportunities that could be generated from a proposal like this. And then finally, when we start moving into the community development opportunities, it's more along the lines of what kind of community infrastructure is created or supported out of this. So are there new roads or new sidewalks or new access points or infrastructure that we can think about that benefit and serve a region in that area? So from the first part, that business development opportunity lens, moving forward, and Warren is going to give you more detail about this once I step away from the microphone. But there is a contemplated Seventh Amendment that would allow this project to move forward. As he had mentioned, that there's a glitch in the agreement that doesn't allow you to move forward without a habitat conservation plan, even if you don't have gophers on your property. So we're trying to fix that right now. But when you move forward, this would allow some revenue generation to start for the port. So we'd immediately start looking at things like cash deposits, option payments, which it's my understanding there was direction from the commission to staff that in future amendments, they wanted to start seeing how can the port start generating revenue from this type of a project. If this does move if and when this does move to an actual ground lease, this specific 29-acre piece that we are talking about would be generating $51,000 a month to the port. So $612,000 a year in ground lease payments directly to the port. So the first thing I think about too, so moving then into the economic development opportunity, I think that you really have, when doing economic development, you have to hold the principle of we do not do economic development to our partners. We do it with our partners. So the first starting place when looking at that is to make sure that what we're proposing is in alignment with what they are articulating they need. So in working with the city of Tumwater, the first thing that I did was to look at their comprehensive plan. What are they talking about their needs and interests when it comes to economic development? As part of their economic development, or as part of their comprehensive plan, they adopted an economic development plan. And so I went through that plan to analyze, does this kind of a proposal, is it in alignment with what Tumwater is articulating it's looking for from an economic development perspective? And you can see I just highlighted two of them. There's actually other ones in there, but these were very, very clear to me. So goal number 3 in their plan is to grow the city's light industrial and manufacturing sectors. The proposed building is in that kind of a use. And number 6 is to work with the Port of Olympia to develop the new Market Industrial Campus in the Olympia Regional Airport. So these are in alignment. I did collect from the city of Tumwater some information about fee collection. So again, this is just for the 29-acre piece that we're contemplating here. So there is a traffic impact fee that would be assessed to this project. Traffic impact fees go towards improving the traffic flow associated with the proposed project. There is also another $439,000 SEPA mitigation fee associated with I-5 and Tumwater Boulevard improvements. And then there is also a $225,000 building permit fee associated just with this project. So those fees do go to the city of Tumwater, and they are collected when building permits are fully pulled and people are starting to move forward with their project, they make those payments. I did make some estimates, and I just want to say right now, the next 2 slides are estimates at this point in time. They can change. But I did make some estimates on what we could see or what Tumwater would see associated with a construction sales tax revenue for this specific project. So I do think that you're in the range of about potentially in the $600,000 that would go towards the city of Tumwater's general fund. So sales taxes go towards a city's general fund. It's out of their general fund that they pay for things like police and fire and other services. So I took the square footage of the building. I used a number of $150 a square foot for construction and improvements to the building. That number can move. It's market dependent. It's also dependent upon what sort of improvements you could be doing additionally to that building. That gave a construction cost of over 70 million for a project of this size. When you use the city's sales tax calculation of 0.84%, that's how I came up with that number. I also did a similar exercise with property tax on this project as well. I used an estimated or assumed $50 million assessed structure for the building that they would be building. And when you do that, that generates about $496,000 of property tax to the city of Tumwater. And that breaks down, there's different junior taxing districts that also obtain funding through property tax. So city of Tumwater has a certain amount, 87,000, but the higher funding funder in that is actually your school districts when it comes to property tax. So a proposal like this with an assessed value that we're assuming, you could see the Tumwater School District be north of 194,000 annual property tax contributions with a project like this. Tumwater Metro Parks and Timberland Library are another examples. The one thing that I can't do right now, because this is what we would call a spec building or speculative building, we don't know who the tenant would be. So I can't make deep assumptions about the annual sales tax. So if somebody was creating something in that building and selling it, you could see annual sales tax. I also can't make deep calculations on the types of B&O tax that could be generated, but those are additional funding sources that could also go to the city of Tumwater. From an economic development lens, keeping it there, there are some additional infrastructure that a proposal like this would move forward. So there's on-site and off-site improvements that would be required, things like stormwater improvements, frontage improvements, and center street upgrades. And then employment opportunities. So again, I can't right now because we don't know who that tenant that they could track down would be. I can't really do a deep dive on the anticipated jobs or direct or indirect wages. But what we do know from Panettone's marketing material is that there are some anticipated employment sectors that they would be targeting. And so as we move down that line, we can get more information. So they are looking at industrial distribution, warehousing, e-commerce, light manufacturing, technology, or life sciences as potential users for a building of that nature. From a community development standpoint with this specific project, I've mentioned some of these, but I just want to carry them forward. So a project like this does create a significant contribution through its impact fee assessment to the Tumwater Boulevard and Interstate 5 interchange improvements. This does mean new improvements for Center Street, both the roadway and portions of the frontage. When we talk about frontage, it's curbs, gutters, sidewalks, street trees in certain areas. There would be improved stormwater handling and runoff in certain areas with this building. And then I do want to talk about a building like this and the property tax. So they are making a significant property tax payment or contribution to certain districts that probably wouldn't increase service load. So what I mean by that is the tax benefit, there's a clear tax benefit to Tumwater School District, Metro Parks District, and the library, but this kind of use probably isn't increasing their service load. So it's typically where people live, not where they work, that is generating the service load on schools, parks, or libraries. So they're contributing, but not being used. One could probably even also articulate that fire the buildings like this have a lower frequency of fire service calls, so that you could probably even make that same case. After applying the three lens, I did want to compare this to the port's current adopted policy guidance document. So our current operating policy guidance document is Vision 2050. So I ran this through just to make sure that it was in alignment with various goals and actions. There is a clear goal about leveraging the port's unique statutory authority and catalyzing economic opportunities in partnership with local jurisdictions and economic development organizations. I won't read all of these to you, but I think 21 specifically is an interesting one about job creation and attracting business in certain areas like intermodal freight logistics, avionics, real estate development, recreation and tourism, agriculture, food processing, storage, and manufacturing. I think that there's a pretty clear line between this proposal and that objective. We also have in there's another goal. I would say in this one, I'll call out item number 31, evaluate local government partners' economic development and land use needs and how they might be advanced using port-owned properties. That goes back to the evaluation of their comp plan that I mentioned. So there's a couple of pieces with this South Sound Commerce Center. It does look like they've been through the city permitting process. Permits are ready to be issued with this. Panattoni is revising construction costs and estimates. They're seeking equity partners right now. We are moving in the direction of moving forward with this. There is a challenge associated with our current option to ground lease. So with that, I'll hand it over to Warren. He's going to talk through what that challenge is and the option amendment number 7 that is proposed to correct those items. So with that, there you are.
Thank you, Mike. I do want to talk a little bit about the timeline. So you can see the bullets there in terms of should the 7th Amendment be approved, we're ready to move forward right away. We've got permits that are ready to be issued by the city. Construction cost estimates are being updated right now. Panattoni is in the process of seeking equity partners. They are involved in another major development in the city of Des Moines with the Port of Seattle property. They have recently seen tremendous participation by the marketplace with equity partners. We don't expect any difference here. We want to take advantage and leverage those opportunities. The drafting of a ground lease would commence immediately, upon approval. The project will go out for bids and ultimately we'll be able to commence the site development and building construction. Fee payments to the city of Tumwater could be as early as May 2025 when the permits are drawn by Panattoni for the project. Again, the 7th Amendment is the key and essential step to enabling all of this to happen. So the timeline then of near-term port events, should the 7th Amendment be approved, is the first thing that will happen is immediately a cash deposit infusion of the good faith deposit promissory note becomes due. If approved in March, that payment would be due to the port no later than April 30th, and that's a little over $14,000. Immediately commence drafting of the South Sound Commerce Center ground lease. We already have the template. The template was approved by the commission in December of 2023. We will go through and fine tune that for any changes that were made during the permitting process, making sure that it meets our needs, incorporates the appropriate provisions made in the 7th Amendment to ensure we have a cohesive and consistent document, and then move forward and bring it back to you in April. Permits may only be pulled from the city by Panattoni after ground lease execution. No permits, no development, no moving of dirt, no construction without pulling the permits. The permits, therefore, must follow and be subsequent to the ground lease execution. This was something, quite honestly, in the previous option lease agreement, these triggers, these step points were never established in terms of a timeline in the original option lease agreement. We have tied that up completely all the way around. We will monitor the port will monitor the issuance of the city permits for commencement of the option payments. As long as the permits are pulled before July 2025, we enter into a ground lease. There will be no option payments. If the permits are not pulled by July 1st, then option payments would begin at $4,300 and change a month. Site development and construction would therefore begin this summer, and we expect that ground lease revenue generation could occur as early as the 3rd quarter of 2026. Part of this is the intent behind this is to take advantage of this year's construction season, now that we are already in February. But backing up, what was the problem with the original option lease agreement and what did we need to do? So the basic issue, which I think is probably pretty clear to you right now, is that the option agreement did not contemplate any development whatsoever without an approved HCP, that any option property would be exempt from HCP mitigation requirements. In fact, we have discovered that it is. The existing option agreement then without an HCP does not allow any development, therefore does not generate any port revenue in the forms of either a cash pro rata share of the good faith deposit promissory note, a pro rata share of the option fee of payments, or the drafting and execution and the resulting revenue from a ground lease. None of those can happen. Background here, I'm sure all of this is very highly familiar with the number of times we've been before the commission. Again, the development's not possible under the current situation. The completion of the HCP does remain a joint port city responsibility. We are actively working on that. We expect to have a draft agreement approved. It's an ambitious timeline, admittedly, in June, and then the NEPA federal environmental process will begin. So if we're able to achieve that timeline and the environmental process goes without too much of a problem, we could potentially have by the end of 2026 an approved HCP with the agency. That's our target goal as I stand here today. So we are making great progress with the agency, especially with regard to both the Gopher and the Lark. There are a lot of contingencies that need to be dealt with, but that's an update on that particular topic. The initial option of ground lease agreement anticipated HCP completion within 24 months of lease execution. That was in July of 2020. So that meant sometime during 2022. Don't need to tell you we're 2.5 years past that. So here we are. And the most recent option agreement that was passed by the commission on February 10th, that was amendment number 6, did extend the due diligence and HCP completion date until the 7th amendment in its final form is approved at such date as determined by the commission. So as part of this 7th amendment, the direction that port staff heard from the commission was first, amend this option agreement to allow development of those parcels within the property that are in fact exempt from HCP requirements. Open that door. The second one is, by opening that door, generate revenue for the port as part of the transaction. The 7th amendment achieves both of the above objective criteria by establishing criteria for non-HCP development and establishing criteria for triggering revenue generation with hard specific dates. And then lastly, to articulate the community economic development value, and that was the piece that Mike just presented to you. Specific provisions to meet the objectives. This is one slide with 6 bullet points that tries to provide a broad brush overview to 15 pages of single spaced wording in the 7th amendment. There are a lot of technical details in this amendment, but essentially what we have attempted to do is reduce the first, based on survey data, is we need to reduce the overall option property from 199 acres to 196 based upon 3 acres of ineligible property. Development is tied to the HCP completion event, not the calendar. The first 6 amendments all connected the calendar. Now this amendment will connect to the event and not to a calendar date, which may or may not be met. Development can be permitted with or without the HCP, subject to Gopher free certification. So the first thing you do is, do we have a habitat plan or not? Yes or no? If yes, you proceed down this road. If you don't have a habitat plan, but the parcel is certified as Gopher free through the city process and through formal designation of that final site plan approval, then you proceed down this path. And so both paths can operate depending upon the nature of the circumstances around the HCP approval. We have also revised the due diligence definition for both HCP and HCP exempt parcels. Good faith cash deposits and option payments are provided for on a pro rata basis, and special provisions for the 2 known developable parcels. Those were the 2 parcels I showed at the beginning, the 29 and the 20 acre parcel. So the port and Panattoni have embraced the needed changes. We've met several times beginning as early as August 2024. Took several months to go ahead and do that, vetted by both staffs as well as both the developer and the port attorneys. And that resulted in the 7th amendment that's before you. Right now, almost 50 acres is not subject to the HCP. So therefore, we can begin to execute the purpose of the option agreement and initiate development. which was the goal. By doing so, we will increase revenue to the port earlier than expected, increase local employment, and increase tax revenue to the city of Tumwater. So additional considerations and next steps. Commission approval of the Seventh Amendment is not commission approval of a ground lease. That will be a separate action that is anticipated right now for April. All future amendments and ground leases under the option agreement will be subject every time to a separate commission action. An action item for this particular approval will be brought back to you for approval on March 10th. And with that, Mike and I are happy to entertain any questions you might have.
I'll just go in order. Commissioner Tom?
I just wanted to ask more about the direct community benefits. I think originally we had discussed more about walking trails or potential amenities to the community that Panattoni could provide in exchange for all of the land overall. I don't necessarily think that would be appropriate to implement at this stage with these two parcels, but if we could include something for the completion of the HCP that is a direct community benefit, I think that would be a direction I'd like to go.
On the development agreement, now there was reference in some of the early amendments that you may have caught on to with regard to a development agreement with the city of Tumwater. That development agreement never came to fruition. And as a result, there was no other requirement within the basic agreement itself to provide that. It was going to be subject to an amendment and it was conditional upon the city and the port and the developer coming to terms. And that did not happen. And perhaps, Mike, you have additional things to say.
Yes. I think it's a very good question. And I will say that I've had long conversations with Commissioner Vasavada on the same subject, as well as she's raised this issue in previous staff briefings on this project. I am in conversations. Warren and I are both in conversations with Panattoni as to how that could happen. There are challenges with the sense of there not being an approved habitat conservation plan right now. There's a little bit of a chicken and the egg about how, when, what commitments are made associated with community benefits or community amenities. I do feel that the conversation with Panattoni is in a very positive space about how can we crack that nut on that conversation. I think that things are progressing there and feel positive that they have shown in previous iterations associated with the development agreement, things like trails or other like community amenities. I think the commission, or at least Commissioner Vasavada before, has made it clear that there's a need and a desire to see that. So while we don't have it immediately in writing, I do feel that the conversation with Panattoni to be able to highlight those or address those as we move forward, that door feels very open to me right now. And I think that we're committed to continue to move forward there.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes, of course.
And that could be done outside of the development agreement with the city of Tumwater. The port, the commission could make a decision to go in a particular direction absent a development agreement.
Absolutely. It does not require a development agreement. I do think that there was some value at the time that a development agreement had, because it showed renderings of what the whole thing could sort of look like and the trade-off that may be between if city of Tumwater was willing to give certain things like vesting for an extended period of time, then Panattoni would meet that, I don't want to call it trading baseball cards, but it is in some ways when you create a development agreement, you create that scenario. I still think that there is an opportunity for us to identify the things that we're hearing is important and how we can incorporate that. I don't think that that's off the table. I think that Panattoni's articulated to both Warren and I that we can find ways to incorporate those. It's just the mechanism of how and when to do it.
And so because what I've heard from my fellow commissioners is having an opportunity to have that incorporated as we progress on the project is a priority, and figuring out the methodology to do it is definitely staff input, I think, will allow it to be executed on. But I think just saying out loud, you've heard from the commission as a whole.
Very clear.
And to Commissioner Montano's point, not necessarily at this juncture for these two parcels, but more so when looking at the broader scope of the project and how this is a comprehensive project for the community.
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanders?
I think everyone wrapped that one up really well.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's a great point, and I appreciate hearing about our desire to provide some community benefit there in the Tumwater property. I just want to add my voice that's very important to all of us. But overall, I think this is a really exciting project. I'm really excited for the port and for the city of Tumwater and for Panattoni. I think Panattoni has a great reputation of attracting high quality tenants. And I believe this project could really unlock the potential for the Newmarket Industrial Campus. So I'm excited about it.
Thank you. And Commissioner Sanders thought that it was wrapped up, but I'm afraid the chair is going to exercise her prerogative.
May I go after you as well, Chair?
Oh, yes. Well, let's go back to you, Commissioner.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, please.
I just wanted to state again, as we've talked about this before, when I took office, I previously worked with Panattoni and I stopped working with them so that I could run for office. There was a formal investigation into my conflict of interest based on requests from the public that I would be removed from office. There is no recusal, there is no exception. So if you are, if you have a conflict at all, you cannot serve, you have to step down, which was news to me. I was told that you could recuse yourself. So I just want to say again that I do not have a conflict of interest. And I am participating in these conversations out of deference to the public's perception. And that is how we've proceeded. But I just wanted to make that clear that there was a full-blown investigation into that, and I will not be receiving anything for my participations.
So Commissioner Harding, can you I got unclear all of a sudden. So are you participating or not participating in Panattoni?
I completely, I have been participating in the discussions. I have been abstaining from voting out of respect of the perceived conflict, but I just want to clarify, there is no conflict. If there was a conflict, I would not be serving in this office. So I collect no fees. It's actually one of the challenges of working in real estate and serving on the Port Commission. There's been numerous potential real estate deals where I have deferred participating. So I just wanted to make that clear again for the record.
Well, thank you. And
Panattoni only being one of them. So
I would just note that it helps us all to have that expertise in this conversation. So
thank you, Chair.
Mr. Hunt, Warren and Mike, I have a few things that I'd like us to address. One is just as we move forward to the action on this proposed lease amendment to the option to lease, that because the underlying one we all recognize was very interestingly drafted, I would like to see a red line markup of the changes for me to review.
I sent that to you this morning.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Along with, given the amount of deletions, there are 7 sections of the original agreement that were completely struck and replaced. So there is a fair amount of deletion and strikeouts. So I also sent you a copy of the option to lease agreement so that you had some real text to be able to compare without a line drawn to it.
Thank you, because it is a massive change, and I want to make sure I'm seeing that.
And I'm happy to provide that to other commissioners should there be a desire for that. But whatever you need, just let us know.
Second, you're clear. First of all, thank you for this briefing and providing more context than we've had in this 5-member commission. I think it's very helpful to us. I know you said this is a briefing not about entering any ground lease, but about how we redo our option to make it possible. But my understanding is the ground lease comes quick on this. And so I do think it's important that we're thinking kind of holistically. I wanted to flag that, Mike, you helped ground me back to looking at the Newmarket's Industrial Campus Master Plan, which was never adopted by the commission, but it was worked on by 2 commissions, the one that had Sue Gunn and then the one that had EJ Zita afterwards. And developing this land the way, like as industrial, light industrial and heavy industrial land, it looks to me was completely consistent with that work we did. That's sort of almost like a master plan for the area. And we worked on that with the Thurston Regional Planning Council. You and I were just talking about the Planning Council. So even the 30 acres, there was a goal in this plan to have 30 acres developed as industrial land by 2025. So go Panattoni, like they're like going to try to sneak it in, get it through in this construction season. All that's fine. And I looked and the science, I'm sure the review comes through the Panattoni with Tumwater and others, but it looks like that land is very heavily compacted soils, not really good gopher habitat. So all of that looks like there's bad groundwater issues, which I had been briefed by constituents back in the day. And that will have to be dealt with by the people on the site through their permitting with Tumwater. All good. Here's my concerns. My concerns are that in that planning that's not adopted, it's not like law for us, but it was a vision. We envisioned sort of having a master planned concept for District 4, for this parcel and at some point we departed from that, and the port authorized, we decided to enter an option to ground lease with Panattoni for the whole portion. And once we didn't do a development agreement, we lost the master planned concept, the idea that there'd be something, a picture you could show the community that says, here's where we're going to end up. And I get that too, because how much can you bite off at a time, and how much time does it take to assemble the capital? But that was part of the New Markets Industrial Campus, envisioned pretty much this District 4, which is 200 acres out of our 315 undeveloped industrial acres. It's the big chunk of our industrial land is now handed over to our new partner, Panattoni, who's going to build this in a way to benefit Tumwater and the citizens of Thurston County and the residents of Thurston County. So I just want to say, we now do this without any kind of, there is nothing holding the broader development accountable to any specific vision, because it's in the private sector, basically. The way I think we negotiated the original option, and certainly the way things are moving now. With that, I just want to underscore this conversation about things like a ball field, a buffer from the school area, retention of the densest trees. These were things that were part of what was envisioned in that District 4 that have no embodiment in reality. There is no lever I'm aware of for us other than our partnership with Panattoni and the desire to do it. And so I just want to flag that that's my concern. It doesn't pertain to the next two parcels, which are along Center Street, which are in a heavy industrial area, and it's going to be great, bring a lot to the port, bring a lot to the community, but it's that very large piece of Tumwater as we move forward. And so I really look forward. I thank Commissioner Harding, Commissioner Tong for articulating that in different ways. And that's the signal that I'm sending here publicly of what we're looking for. So I thank you on that. Did that spur anything or from someone else before we wrap?
I think that that's consistent, and I think that that's what you're working on, correct?
We are actively working that. So thank you for the clear direction.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. All right. So that was the advisory calendar. And we move to commissioner reports, and we'll move in the opposite direction now and start with Commissioner Hart.
Okay. Well, I came into this meeting and I was in a bad mood because I had a conversation beforehand, and I was saying that I was reflecting upon my own words, which is hurt people, and it's really easy to find division right now. And there are many more reasons to come together. So this is my quote of the day. Nothing in nature lives for itself. Rivers don't drink their own water. Trees don't eat their own fruit. The sun doesn't shine for itself. Flowers don't spread fragrance for themselves. Living for others is the rule of nature.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Isle.
I don't have any cool quotes today. I don't really have anything to report either. I would just like to thank Executive Director Smith for mentioning the town hall, the Commissioner Town Hall on Thursday that I'll be hosting there at the Nisqually Middle School at 5:30. And it's not restricted to residents of District 2. So please feel free to stop by at 5:30 and we can have an in-depth discussion about all things port. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Isle. For the record, Commissioner Isle's town hall was scheduled before the town hall on the airport master plan. And my report would just say that I'm excited about our retreat tomorrow, which is taking place at the SPSCC Lacey campus. And I will be at least 30 minutes to an hour late because of an emergent event at work that I cannot forestall. So thank you for your grace, Commissioner Sanders.
Yes, I had the honor and privilege to be invited to present at the Tenino Chamber, where I spoke about the activities of the port, updating the Tenino Chamber on what we're working on for 2025, as well as looking forward to the Public Observation Day for Butt Inlet Cleanup, where I will be attending. And I think that's it.
For me, I attended the Thurston County Chamber lunch. They talked about Gen Z and the workforce and diversity. I think that was really interesting, and I'm glad Alex and Mike Reed were there so they can bring that information to the staff here. And then I have the chamber lunch this Wednesday. Looking forward to our retreat tomorrow as well. Seeing everybody again there.
Thank you. All right. I like the discussions part of Commissioner reports. Was there any other discussion?
I have a follow-up. I would propose that if Commissioner Vasavada is going to need to start later, that we start later tomorrow. I just don't know that we can be productive if we aren't all there as a group. I don't know if I'm in the minority there, but even if we extended to 9:30 and then I know we don't like to schedule from the dais, but given that we all need to talk about this as it is tomorrow, I don't think we can start with one of our commissioners missing.
I'm sure you can, but we can put you.
Repeat ourselves. I don't want to spend a half an hour, you know what I mean?
May I ask what's on the agenda for 9 a.m.? Director Smith.
We start out with welcome and introductions, but then we dive right into looking at commission priorities for 2025, and we'll start walking through some of these port planning documents I referenced tonight, the Vision 2050 and the strategic plan, before opening it up to discussion about the priorities. And
Would starting at 9:30 hamstring the rest of the schedule?
I think so. That's what I was gonna ask.
Is everyone open to starting at 9:30? Just, and obviously you might be a little later than that, but I just am concerned we're gonna just have to do it again.
And I've been deeply engaging with the Vision 2050 document, kind of at the behest of some of our newer staff. So I think it's also to level set and make sure we're all kind of counted. So I hope it won't cause any trouble if I'm a little bit late.
Is that what, I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot, but we don't have another time to talk about it as a group.
I'm happy to start at 9:30 if that sort of at least lessens the time where
Does that solve the problem?
I don't have a problem with being a little bit late.
Okay.
My meeting is at 9. It may wrap up at 9:30 or towards, I'll be there by 10.
Is it going to be on Zoom also?
No.
Just in person?
Okay, if we can leave it at 9, I just
There are legislative cutoffs. I work as a lobbyist. There's something I can't,
totally understand.
We can also just tell folks we're starting at 9:30, and if anybody happens to come at 9, we could just all sit around and chat and drink coffee until 9:30. So
I didn't mean to make it more confusing. So should we just go with 9 and then?
why don't I can send a note out to staff saying we won't actually start the meeting until 9:30, and just we'll see who checks their email.
sorry about that. Thank you.
Is everyone on board with that? I'm trying to dictate.
I would just say for future meetings, I'm more comfortable if they're on Zoom to give people the opportunity who may not be able to attend physically, hear the information and be a part of this.
Okay, yeah, appreciate that. It's great.
Okay, so we're starting at 9:30.
9:30 tomorrow.
Okay.
That's what happens when you don't conduct any business in private, guys. So, okay, and then meeting announcements, that's back to, or other business, we have any? No. Meeting announcements?
They're coming on up. So again, we have this Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. the Q&A about the airport master plan right here in this room, 5:30 to 7 p.m. Then the next night, 5:30 to 7 p.m., the town hall with Commissioner Isle. And again, that is not in this room. It's at Nisqually Middle School in Lacey. And then we go back to our regular commission meeting on Monday, March 10th, 5:30 p.m. right here. On the 18th of March, there's a Citizens Advisory Committee meeting at 5 p.m. They're starting earlier these days, also in this room. And then on March 24th, a regular commission meeting at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you. Well, then, I think it's